Hey guys, so this is going to be a little bit differently. Instead of actually having a video, I'm just going to do a voiceover and see how well this ends up turning out, because I just can't attach a video to this slideshow for whatever reason. So this is what you guys are going to get for right now, and hopefully you guys actually learn a bit more about Spina Bifida with this slideshow. And if you guys have any more questions about Spina Bifida that you want to learn, let me know and I will address it and make a video about it later down the line, or just answer you in my comments or anything like that. But hopefully you guys enjoy this slideshow the way it is, with just a voiceover instead of actually having it to be a video. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this. Alright, so on this slide it's gonna be talking about the conditions that come with Spina Bifida. And I mentioned before that mobility and getting around is a condition that comes with it, but also with that comes the bladder, bowel, and gastrointestinal disorders, latex allergies, obesity, skin breakdown, social issues, sexual issues, tendinitis, and learning disabilities. So as far as the mobility goes, I mean, most of you know that I can get around semi-independently with the help of my braces, but a lot of people actually use wheelchairs, walkers, or anything along the lines of that to get around. And some actually are not able to push themselves around with the manual wheelchairs, so they end up using electric wheelchairs. So that's some of the different stuff that we use to actually get around for people that have Spina Bifida. And then as far as the bladder, bowel, and gastrointestinal disorders, I'm not sure if it really is a condition that comes with Spina Bifida, but I do know that another YouTuber that has Spina Bifida is also lactose intolerant, and so am I. So I know that that's a gastrointestinal disorder that I have, which is the lactose intolerance. And then as far as bladder control, I have none whatsoever, and that comes with the Spina Bifida. Most people with Spina Bifida don't have any control over their bladder. And for bowel movements, I actually have to be on medication for that. Since I don't have any control over my bladder or anything like that, bowel movements is not something that I can actually do on my own. I need to have medication to help me do that. And most people with Spina Bifida actually have the same condition. And latex allergies, I didn't have that growing up. I had it just recently when I turned 18. I ended up finding out that I was actually allergic to latex, and ended up finding out that most people with Spina Bifida actually do have this condition, which is the latex allergy. So for most of you that know, Band-Aids are made of latex, gloves. So I have to constantly be looking at that to see if they have latex in them, because if they do, I can't use them. And if I do end up using them without knowing that they are latex, I end up breaking out in a rash. So it's not like a severe allergy to the point where I need to be hospitalized, but it is uncomfortable with having to have rashes and being itchy and stuff like that. And obesity is another condition that comes with it. And the reason for that is because, like I said, some people with Spina Bifida actually are in wheelchairs, and that's very limited as to how much movement they can actually have on a day-to-day basis. So obesity is one thing that ends up happening because of the fact that most people are not able to actually walk around and have that much physical activity happen throughout the day. So it ends up happening with people that are in wheelchairs. Although some people that are in walkers, or like me, that are actually able to get around semi-independently, obesity is still a problem because of the fact that we don't have that bowel movement. So that causes us to end up gaining some more weight than usual if we would have had regular bowel movements. And then skin breakdown, I haven't really had an issue with this, but I do know that with Spina Bifida, a skin breakdown that most people have is the fact that most people have dry skin. So we have to constantly be using lotions and keeping our skin moisturized and stuff like that. But then again, we have to also be looking out for that as well, because of the fact that some lotions actually do have latex in them, and I didn't know that until recently. But yeah, we have to constantly be using lotion and keep our skin moisturized and stuff like that. And then social issues, I mean, it kind of comes with just being disabled in general, because most people with disabilities, I mean, are very shy and don't really know how to interact with people because of the fact that we're afraid that we're going to be judged and stuff like that with our disability. But yeah, it comes with just having a disability in general. But most people with spina bifida tend to be the ones that have stage fright, and I'm not really sure why that is, but from my research, it just says that most people with spina bifida end up having stage fright. And then sexual issues, again, with the whole thing with having no bladder control or bowel movements, sex is just one thing that a lot of people with spina bifida just tend to avoid because of the fact that it could be awkward and just not enjoyable, because of the fact that some of us don't have any sensation down there, and for some, I mean, it's just very embarrassing because of the fact that with no bladder control, it tends to end up being an issue when it comes to having sex. So that's some of the sexual issues that some people have. And then others, with the fact that paralysis comes with spina bifida, some are not able to do it in general without the help of a partner, and some partners don't really know how to really handle someone with a disability. So sex is just a thing that most people with a disability or spina bifida just kind of avoid in general. And then tendinitis is something that I've actually struggled with since I was little. It kind of comes with having surgeries. I've had really bad arthritis since I was a baby. I had surgery from the time that I was born, so with every single winter when it's actually cold, my muscles and joints and everything tend to like just tense up and get to where I just cannot move. And most people with spina bifida have this problem as well because of the fact that we have the extensive nerve damage. So it gets to where we literally feel like we are just walking on pins and needles, and it's not the most enjoyable thing on the world to like actually be able to get around and just be present. It's not exactly the easiest thing to do with tendinitis. And then the learning disability, I just learned that people with spina bifida are actually more prone to having dyslexia and having like just mental disabilities in general, because of the fact that some people with spina bifida, like myself, have hydrocephalus. Our brain is not exactly it's not like everybody else's per se, because of the fact that we have to have brain surgery. So with every single brain surgery that we've had, our brain is altered in some way so that we actually are not able to learn as easily or as fast as others might think that we can. But it's not exactly like a thing where we just can't learn. It's just a learning disability that we might end up having where it's either dyslexia or we just need to actually have someone really explain things to us in detail for us to actually get it. Okay, so this slide's going to be talking about the physical limitations that come with spina bifida. And as most of you know, people with spina bifida end up getting around with the help of crutches, braces, or wheelchairs. And when I say we have to learn to actually get around on our own, meaning that for those of us that are in wheelchairs, whether that be a manual wheelchair or electric wheelchair, we have to learn as we get older how to use them without the help of parents or doctors actually being there to supervise us while we're using them. And the same thing goes with people that use crutches or braces. As we get older, we have to be able to learn to use them without really being supervised that much, Like most people growing up have doctors that have us constantly coming in for therapy to be able to learn to walk with braces, crutches, or even with our wheelchairs. So as we get older, we need to be able to learn to actually use that type of object without being supervised by a parent or a doctor. And then some people with spinal bifida are actually able to use the bathroom on their own. And when I say on their own, I mean whether it be with the help of a catheter or actually having the sensation to know that we need to use the restroom, because some of us with spinal bifida actually do have bladder control. while others don't. So whether it be with the help of a catheter or just being able to know when it is that you have to use the restroom, it is possible for someone with spina bifida to actually use the bathroom on their own. And then as far as a doctor or a nurse, teachers, or even our parents, they have to kind of give us a chance as a child to kind of figure it out for ourselves, what it is that we can and cannot do. Most people with spina bifida are in wheelchairs, but I mean, they still might be able to get around and actually play with kids that are not disabled and actually kind of figure it out for themselves how to actually play with a child that is not disabled. And the same thing goes with a child that has to use crutches or braces. Like for myself as a child, I was told that I would not be able to necessarily run, only walk. And being able to play with kids that were not disabled, I learned that I am able to run. I just am not able to run for the same amount of time that another child must have been able to run, or just not as fast. But I am able to run, and being able to play with a child that is not disabled, I kind of learned that for myself. And so, I mean, most kids that are disabled need to be able to have that exposure with someone that is not disabled, so that they do end up learning that they are able to do certain things that their doctors or parents say that they might not be able to do. And most of the time when the doctor or a parent says they can't do this, it's mostly out of precaution so that they are not physically hurt when they're trying to do it. But I mean, at the end of the day, if a child at least tries it, then they can at least say, you know what, my doctor's right, or my parent is right, and actually avoid getting hurt in the future. So as a parent or as a doctor, I mean, they kind of have to have the child kind of figure it out on their own as well, instead of having the child just depend on the doctor or parent to tell them, hey, you can and cannot do this. Okay, so this slide is going to be talking about how spina bifida is treated. And like I mentioned previously, there's 4 different types of spina bifida. So each one is actually treated differently. For myelomeningocele, it's usually operated on within the first 2 or 3 days of being born. And like I mentioned previously, this is the type of spina bifida that I actually have, and I was actually operated on within minutes of being born. And I'm not 100% sure if the 2 or 3 days of birth is actually because of the technology that we have today, or if it's just because I was born with hydrocephalus on top of that I was actually operated on within minutes of being born. But most people with myelomeningocele are usually operated on within 2 or 3 days of birth. And then someone with meningocele has to be treated with surgery, and more often than not the child is paralyzed. And like I mentioned before, people with spina bifida do suffer with paralysis. Some are paralyzed from the waist down, some just have paralysis within their body, like some parts of their body they can't feel and some they can. So meningocele is one of those that they either are in a wheelchair or they are not. They just have to have the surgery sooner than later so that they actually are able to avoid the paralysis. And then for OSD, it's recommended that they actually see a surgeon early to actually keep the nerves and the brain from becoming more damaged. And the reason for that, like I mentioned, I have extensive nerve damage. So with OSD, that type of spina bifida, if the child is actually seen early enough, they can avoid the nerve damage and brain damage that actually comes with spinal bifida. It's not a guaranteed thing, but it is a precaution just so that someone with OSD is actually able to have the chance to not necessarily have the nerve damage or the brain damage that most people with spina bifida actually do end up having. And then for spina bifida occulta, it's the less severe of the spina bifidas. And with spina bifida occulta, it's usually not something that has to be treated because of the fact that it's not non-existent, but pretty much it is, because of the fact that it's the less severe versions of it. And I actually babysat for a child that had this type of spina bifida, and the mother actually told me that they weren't even told that the child had spina bifida when he was born, because of the fact that it's the less severe, and usually a child can grow up with spina bifida occulta without even knowing that they have spina bifida and go about their lives and be completely fine without any symptoms whatsoever. So this is the less severe of the spinal bifidas. Most patients, like I said, are not told that they have it. And the reason for that is just so that the parent won't freak out that, hey, my child has a disability, when in reality it's the less severe and usually it's not treated on. So, I mean, why worry a parent when, I mean, they're not really going to have to necessarily come in for hospital visits or anything like that. So this is the less severe of them, and basically they're all treated differently. Some of them, like I said, the myelomeningocele, it has to be treated on within 2 or 3 days of being born, whereas spina bifida occulta doesn't have to be treated on at all. So this is the different types. And then of course with all of these, I mean, most patients, they're treated differently based on the actual patient. Like with me, I have myelomeningocele and I am able to walk, but some people with myelomeningocele are not able to walk. So it kind of varies per patient as well. But there is not one particular like treatment to actually cover every single type of spinal bifida. It just kind of depends on the patient, and again also the type of spinal bifida that they have. Okay, so in this slide I'm going to be talking about if a child with spinal bifida can grow up to live a full life, and how is it managed. And the answer is yes, a child with spinal bifida can grow up to live a full life. And with the help of today's medicine, about 90% of babies that are born with spina bifida are now able to live to be adults. And most of them do really well in school and actually play competitive sports. And before, it wasn't thought that a child would actually grow up to live to be an adult, because of the fact that, like I said previously, there's different types of spinal bifida, and with those different types comes a lot of different challenges, whether that be being prone to infections or having to constantly come in to have surgery or anything along the lines of that. There's a number of reasons why a child with spina bifida previously was not able to live to be an adult, and they all have to do with the fact that with spina bifida, most of us are prone to infections, and most of us have to come in for constant surgeries. And like anybody knows, surgeries sometimes go wrong, and infections, if they're not treated fast enough or well enough, it can be fatal. So that's the reason that most children with spinal bifida were not able to live full lives previously. But with the help of today's medicine, that number has actually increased to how many children with spinal bifida are actually able to live to be full adults now.